The build-up to the opening test between the Springboks and the All Blacks has taken another dramatic turn, with New Zealand pundit Scotty Stevenson launching a strong criticism of Rassie Erasmus and accusing the South African head coach of taking his psychological tactics to an entirely different level. As the two rugby giants prepare to meet at Ellis Park, the focus has moved beyond tactics, team selections, and physical battles, and directly onto the way Erasmus is controlling the narrative before the match. The Springboks coach has become famous for his ability to use the media, create pressure, challenge perceptions, and find psychological advantages before important matches. But this time his approach has attracted significant criticism from across the Tasman. Stevenson, speaking on Sport Nation's Scotty and Izzy show, argued that there is a fine line between clever psychological coaching and placing unnecessary pressure on match officials, particularly when millions of passionate supporters are watching every decision. His comments have added another layer of tension to what was already one of the most anticipated tests in international rugby. The controversy began after Erasmus appeared alongside former international referee and current Springboks coach Jaco Peyper at a press conference, where the pair made pointed comments about officiating and the way the game could be interpreted. For Stevenson, bringing an experienced former referee into the discussion at precisely that moment was not simply a coincidence. He described it as next-level Mafia Don stuff, arguing that the decision was a deliberate attempt to influence the conversation surrounding the referee before the whistle had even been blown. The criticism is particularly significant because the referee for the opening test will be England's Matthew Carley, meaning that the official is now entering a match in which refereeing has already become one of the biggest talking points. Instead of the attention being focused entirely on Artie Savia, Sia Khaleesi, Beauden Barrett, Sasha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, Cheslin Colby, and the other superstars expected to take the field, the officials have unexpectedly found themselves at the center of the pre-match story. That is precisely what Stevenson believes should not happen. His argument is not necessarily that Rassie Erasmus is wrong to discuss refereeing, but rather that the consequences of those comments can be much bigger when they come from the head coach of the reigning world champions. South Africa has one of the most passionate rugby fan bases in the world, and every controversial decision involving the Springboks can quickly become a national talking point. Stevenson referenced former referee Bryce Lawrence when discussing the pressure officials can face, while also pointing toward the intense reaction in New Zealand surrounding referee Wayne Barnes in previous years. His point was that both countries have experienced situations where supporters become deeply focused on officiating, and once that happens, every penalty, scrum decision, breakdown call, and yellow or red card can become magnified. That creates an enormous challenge for the referee because the official is no longer simply managing two teams. They are also dealing with the expectations of two huge rugby nations. This is where Stevenson believes Erasmus must be careful. The Springboks coach has built a reputation as one of the smartest tactical minds in the sport, and his psychological approach has played a major role in South Africa's success. Under Erasmus, the Springboks have won back-to-back Rugby World Cups and established themselves as the dominant force in international rugby. His methods are rarely conventional, and he has repeatedly demonstrated that preparation extends far beyond what happens during the 80 minutes of a test match. From squad selection and tactical planning to substitutions and media management, Erasmus appears to look for every possible advantage. His supporters see this as outstanding coaching intelligence, while critics believe some of his methods go too far. That divide is exactly what makes Erasmus such a fascinating figure in modern rugby. Even his opponents often admit that he understands the psychological side of the sport better than almost anyone. The latest controversy is therefore not completely surprising, but the timing makes it particularly important. The All Blacks have already attempted to establish their own narrative before the test, with Dave Rennie and his players repeatedly emphasizing their desire to play with greater tempo. New Zealand wants to demonstrate that the modern All Blacks are capable of playing fast, exciting and expansive rugby while also competing physically against the Springboks. That message has been repeated throughout the build-up, creating an obvious contrast between the two teams. The traditional stereotype is that South Africa prefers a slower, more physical contest, using powerful forwards, territorial kicking, and a dominant set piece to control matches, while New Zealand wants to move the ball quickly and attack space. But Erasmus has pushed back against that narrative, and Stevenson himself acknowledged that the stereotype is too simplistic. The Springboks have repeatedly demonstrated that they can play breathtaking attacking rugby when the conditions are right. Their 2019 Rugby World Cup final victory over England was not simply a story of forward power and kicking. South Africa also produced moments of excellent attacking rugby. The same has been true in numerous matches under Erasmus, where the Springboks have shown that their game plan is far more flexible than critics sometimes suggest. Players such as Cheslin Kolbe, Damian Willems, Sasha Feinberg-Mngomezulu, Kurtley Arendse and Jesse Kriel provide the attacking creativity to punish opponents when space appears. At the same time, forwards such as Eben Etzebeth, Pieter-Steph du Toit, Malcolm Marx, Ox Ench and Sia Khaleesi provide the physical foundation that has become synonymous with the South African style. The fascinating question now is whether the All Blacks can force the Springboks into a match played at New Zealand's preferred tempo. Dave Rennie has been rebuilding the confidence of the All Blacks, and the team enters the series with renewed belief. New Zealand's tour performances have provided plenty of evidence that this is not a side coming to South Africa simply to defend and survive. The All Blacks have shown attacking ambition, strong combinations and the willingness to challenge opponents through speed. Players such as Cam Roigard, Jordy Barrett, Will Jordan, Leroy Carter, Artie Savia and Beauden Barrett give Rennie the tools to play an expansive game. But the challenge will be maintaining that tempo against a Springbok side that specializes in disrupting opponents. South Africa can slow the game when necessary, increase the physical pressure, dominate territory and force teams into mistakes. That tactical flexibility is one of the main reasons Erasmus has been so successful. The Springboks do not necessarily need to play one style for 80 minutes. They can change their approach depending on what the opposition gives them, and that unpredictability could prove decisive against the All Blacks. Yet while the tactical battle will be fascinating, the referee controversy remains the central talking point because of the potential consequences. Matthew Carley will enter Ellis Park knowing that every major decision is likely to receive enormous scrutiny. If South Africa receives a penalty, some All Black supporters may question it. If New Zealand receives a crucial decision, sections of the Springboks fanbase may react in the same way. That is the reality of a rivalry this intense. The responsibility therefore falls on both coaching staffs and their players to ensure that the match remains focused on rugby rather than officiating. Rassie Erasmus has already demonstrated that he understands how to create headlines, but whether that helps or hurts his team will only become clear once the game begins. Dave Rennie, meanwhile, must ensure that his players do not become distracted by the psychological battle surrounding the test. The All Blacks need to concentrate on their own performance, especially in the opening 20 minutes, because allowing the Springboks to establish dominance early could make the contest extremely difficult. The first scrum, the first breakdown, the first aerial contest, and the first major defensive collision could all set the tone. If New Zealand can move the ball quickly and force South Africa to defend repeatedly, the visitors could create opportunities for their dangerous backline. But if the Springboks dominate possession, territory, and collisions, then the pressure on the All Blacks will rapidly increase. This is why the psychological battle between Erasmus and Rennie is almost as fascinating as the confrontation between the players. Both coaches understand that rugby is not simply a physical contest. Confidence, expectation, pressure, and momentum can all influence the outcome. Erasmus has spent years mastering those elements, while Rennie is attempting to build a new identity for the All Blacks. The opening test therefore represents much more than another chapter in a historic rivalry. It is also a test of two coaching philosophies. Erasmus believes in preparation, flexibility, pressure, and exploiting every available advantage, while Rennie wants his All Blacks to play with freedom, speed, and renewed confidence. And while Scotty Stevenson may strongly disagree with the way Erasmus has approached the build-up, there is no denying that the South African coach has once again succeeded in doing something he has done so many times before, getting everyone talking about the Springboks before the ball has even been kicked. Now, however, the talking must eventually stop. Matthew Carley will blow the whistle, the Springboks and All Blacks will finally collide, and every psychological tactic, media statement, and prediction will be forgotten for 80 minutes, as the players decide the outcome on the field. If South Africa wins, Erasmus will once again be praised for his preparation and tactical intelligence. If New Zealand triumphs, Dave Rennie and his players will have delivered one of the most significant statements of their rebuilding era. And if the referee becomes the headline, it could prove that Scotty Stevenson's warning was justified. Ultimately, that is what makes this rivalry so compelling. Every detail matters, every decision can change the momentum, and both nations believe they have what it takes to win. The stage is set at Ellis Park, the pressure is enormous, and with the Springboks and All Blacks ready to write another chapter in rugby history, the world is waiting to see whether Rassie Erasmus' psychological game will once again prove to be one of South Africa's greatest weapons.